I am honored and privileged to be here to interact with a group of distinguished members of the public, civil society, professionals, and particularly some distinguished guests from the United States of America, in the UK, Ireland, China, and Japan. This is a civil interactions on a very crucial issue that the People's Republic of Bangladesh is facing at the moment. I am fortunate in a sense that I had the privilege to hear some distinguished persons, scholars, including judges, journalists, professors, and the foreign delegates. So they have just made my job very easy. So I would just like to reflect on some issues and just sharing some views in a very nutshell. At the outset, let me recall one of the noted statements made by the former US Senator Edward Kennedy. Edward M. Kennedy, while visiting Bangladesh in 1971, and particularly when he visited the campus of the historic University of Dhaka, then he made a historic address in front of the university professors, students, and the members of the civil society. He then told that Bangladesh is a reality. Because this I recall, because when I was listening to our friends, some of them made this statement, probably on of our justice, made this statement that Bangladesh is a reality. So Edward Kennedy made this remark that Bangladesh is a reality and it will be doing good. At one time, it will be one of the models for the world. But its future depends on the role of the youth, particularly the students and the teachers of the university, because he was addressing the teachers and the students of the university. Then he told that the Bangladesh future basically depends on the role of the youth, that is the students. So the students of 1971 and 1972 are now of about 70 years old. So they are deciding the fate of Bangladesh. Today the dialogue point is very stated, very focused. Only 2 points are there, that is the pre-election situation and the political environment. These two entities are interchangeable because they are interdependent, so interchangeable. Pre-election situation in any of the countries in the world is almost like same, because political parties hold rallies, demonstration, discussions, and throw their agenda before the people. Second thing, international attention also concentrate there. And a very tension and chaotic situations at times surfaces. So these are the common phenomena in all over the world during the election period. Even there is no exception in the case of the developed countries like the United States of America or the UK. Because the election period, we had the privilege to notice the pre-election situation in the US. And in these days, when communication technology is so developed, that in no time it becomes viral. Whenever any incident takes place in any part of the globe. So this is a common phenomenon. So Bangladesh is also no exception in this case because our election is imminent. So Bangladesh is also having a very, very vibrant society now. Political parties, civil societies are active. They are holding discussions, rallies, demonstration, everything. Today, this event is also one of the components that just keeping in mind the election that is ensuing, we are holding this civil dialogue. So this is a very common phenomenon everywhere. But what makes difference is the Bangladesh at times and in some other countries, some volatile situation erupts. The situation which is not tenable, which is not welcoming. That is at times some point of difference. We need to address this also through dialogue or through interactions and through by some other means. But that does not override the question of election, or that does not undermine the electoral process. We need to hold it. I am thankful to Peter for his right understanding, and also Mr. Paul, who have rightly understood the constitutional provision of Bangladesh regarding holding a national election. Since 1971, when the first government was formed, which is called the Mujibnagar government, that was named after the founding father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. That government was formed in 1971 on 17th of April. That government went on operation, became effective. That was also a very representative government who were elected in the first ever held general election in 1970 under Pakistan regime. That was the election in 1970. That was the first general election that was held under Pakistan regime. And the members who elected in that election, they formed the government in 1971, in which the founding father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib, was the president, and his other colleagues were the members on board. And they ran the government, and they also organized our liberation war. All these activities during our liberation war were carried out by this first government, that we call the first government. And since then, each and every election in Bangladesh, to 1975, all elections held here under the provision of constitutional provision, under the monitoring and management of an independent election commission, which is the constitutional body, is independent in nature. So that is the history of Bangladesh election. But it became, what should I say, contentious when some political parties of military origin came to power. Political parties of military origin based in the cantonment, when they took over, then our electoral process and election became quotient. So that is another genesis that I would like to share with our foreign friends. And that at one stage of time, at one point of time, Bangladesh had to think about the issue of holding national election under election commission, because there were some people in power who corrupted our electoral process by destroying the election commission in every way possible. So that is the genesis of having alternative process, of having a body to run our national election. And then the question of neutral caretaker government came into being. And that idea and that notion we had to adopt and had the experience of testing the neutral caretaker government's election and its government. So when this form was continuing, again it got corrupted and the nation got united to abolish the provision and to go back to the original form of the constitutional provision. That is another transformation of having the monitoring and the managing entity of holding an election. So when the nation got united to go back to our constitutional provision, the Constitution of 1972, that is the fundamentally, that is the constitution that for which we take very special pride, that was drafted and framed and finally promulgated by the founding father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib, in 1972. So that still exists, and that suggests us that we need to hold a very fair, free, neutral, acceptable election under election commission to be formed constitutionally, which is very independent, very a constitutional body. So that is why we are now arguing that of course we need to hold election on the basis of the constitutional dictation by the election commission. But we may need to have some reforms in the formation and in the working procedures of the election commission. That's a different issue that the civil society members, they may make some suggestions and recommendations for the effective role of the election commission. But no other avenue is opened to the nation at the moment. The another thing is this, probably one of my colleagues, he was making the point that when the Holy Quran was burned in Sweden, in Denmark, and other parts of the world, there were huge agitation, outcry. In Bangladesh, it was also resented because we cannot accept any act of violence, any act that does not allow the sentiment, values of any nation. So Bangladesh upholds these wonderful notions regarding humanitarian rights as well as secular and democratic values. So recently it is happy to share you that the United Nations has condemned the act, the heinous act of burning the Holy Quran, that is what should I say, that is one of the parameters of the world's progress in the scale of civilization and culture. So we welcome the wonderful decision. The same decision is also we need to have that the interference or intervention of any sovereign state's policy formation and in other cases is also not welcoming. So global communities also need to get united in having this wonderful notion that we need to allow each and every nations to grow. I am very pleased to learn from one of my colleagues who was sitting over here when he was making his speech that probably Professor Ajoy Das Gupta, one of the leading journalists, he was making the point, I do recall. It is a very important point because that is the ethical standard of a nation, that the dividend or the benefit of the world should be distributed in a very proportionate way. That is also one of the human rights that we need to ensure for each and every nation. Say for example, when we talk about Ukraine-Russian war, and when we denounce that wheat or food should not be treated as a weapon, it should be right to food is a fundamental right. Right to food is a fundamental right. So every nation on this point is united that we need to ensure this supply and distribution of food for every nation who needs, particularly in African countries and some other parts of the globe who need food. So this is also one of the similes that we can note here, that a nation when emerging, today I would like to make the final point that today Bangladesh is a reality, and as Edward Kennedy made his remark back in at least 3 years back, that it is a reality and it would be a very bright, it has a very bright future. We are happy to note that it is indeed, Bangladesh is now a development role model for many of the global nations. We don't like to go back. We don't like to be a laboratory of the guinea pigs for the bioscientists as well as biopoliticians who are aspiring to make this country a platform for learning for the rest of the world. So Bangladesh is reality, and it has made tremendous progress in many cases, on many considerations, on many counts. That is proven. Our foreign friends must acknowledge it. That is a shining examples of Bangladesh in many cases that the global communities subscribe and they imitate the success stories of Bangladesh. So we have the experience of testing neutral government. We have the experience of testing election commission run election. All these experiences this nation has. Finally, we have come to the point that we need to have election under the constitutional provision. But we may have interactions and dialogue for the effectiveness and for the smooth running of a society of election. That should be the core at the central point of discussion. I am thankful to Election Monitoring Forum for holding this wonderful discussion and dialogue, and particularly when they have invited some foreign guests, and they will be able to contribute to our, what should I say, to our, to the process that we are at the moment having. Just of late, yesterday another suggestion is emerging. It is also very surprising, but it is, what should I say, it is another point that we can take a note. That is, some congressmen from the United States, probably they are making an appeal to the United States government. They are making this request to the US government that in Bangladesh election to be held under the United Nations peacekeepers is another dimension. So that is a different question, but it may also help to the Bangladesh election in a sense that we have the experience of having election under caretaker, we have the experience of having election under election commission, but either of these to be adopted, but they have rejected all this. They are now suggesting a different one. But Bangladesh is now united, the whole nation is now getting united to hold a free, fair, and acceptable election under the constitutional provision, that is under the election commission, for which the proud daughter of the founding father of the nation, the Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, is determined. She has been advising to us as and when we meet her to contribute to have a very acceptable, fair election in which every member can contribute under the election commission. That is her strong commitment to holding this type of election. And we can also recall here the Under Secretary of the United Nations who visited Bangladesh some few weeks back. She also told that her visit will contribute to the fulfillment of Bangladesh Prime Minister's holding Prime Minister's commitment of holding free and fair elections through the election commission. আমাদের সাংবাদিক বন্ধুরা, আপনাদের অনেক ধন্যবাদ। আপনারা এই করছেন, সেটি হলো যে আমাদের যে কথাটি আমরা বলছি সেটি হলো যে আমাদের দেশে সাংবিধানিকভাবে গঠিত যে ইলেকশন কমিশন, তার অধীনে নির্বাচন করার অভিজ্ঞতা সেটি আমাদের ছিল এবং সেই জনপ্রতিনিধি তারা রাষ্ট্র পরিচালনা করেছেন। এবং এক সময় দেখা গিয়েছিল যে যখন সামরিক ভিত্তি যে রাজনৈতিক দলগুলো, সেই দলগুলো আমাদের নির্বাচন ব্যবস্থাকে নানাভাবে প্রশ্নবিদ্ধ করেছে এবং সেটি অগণতান্ত্রিকভাবে সরকার পরিচালনা করেছে নানাভাবে, এবং তারা যখন ক্ষমতায় ছিল তখন সমাজ রাষ্ট্র ক্রমান্বয়ে পশ্চাতে যাচ্ছিল এবং সেই তিক্ত অভিজ্ঞতার পর থেকেই জাতিকে ভাবতে হয়েছিল যে আমাদের একটি কেয়ারটেকার নির্বাচন করা যায় কি না। এবং তখন পুনরায় এই সম্মিলিতভাবে সকলে ঐক্যমত পোষণ করেছিল যে আমাদের একটি কেয়ারটেকার গভর্নমেন্ট থাকাটাই বোধহয় উচিত, কেননা যেভাবে রাজনৈতিক দলগুলোকে, সরকার ব্যবস্থাকে এবং ইলেকশন কমিশনকে যেমনিভাবে দূষিত করা হয়েছিল, যেমনিভাবে ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত করা হয়েছিল, গণতান্ত্রিক পথে নিয়ে যাওয়া হচ্ছিল, পরিস্থিতিতে এই ধরনের একটি ধারায় চলে আসতে হয়েছিল কেয়ারটেকার গভর্নমেন্টের জন্য। কেয়ারটেকার গভর্নমেন্ট আবার যখন কেয়ারটেকার গভর্নমেন্ট এর মাধ্যমে ইলেকশন শুরু হয়ে গেল, তখন দেখা গেল আবার আর এক দুষ্ট চক্র কাজ শুরু হয়ে গেল এবং সেটিকেও দূষিত করে ফেললো নানাভাবে। এবং সেটি দূষিত করলো যারা করলো, সেই দূষিত করার পিছনেও আবার সেই রাজনৈতিক উৎপত্তির কথাটি আবার সামনে চলে আসছিল, যে সেই মানুষগুলোই করেছিল যে মানুষগুলোর রাজনৈতিক উৎপত্তি ছিল সেনানিবাস, সেই মানুষগুলোই পুনরায় আবার এটিকেও নষ্ট করে দিচ্ছিল। ফলশ্রুতিতে তখনই আবার শুরু হলো, পুরো জাতি আবার একত্রিত হলো যে না, আমাদের পুরো পৃথিবীব্যাপী যে ব্যবস্থা, সেই ব্যবস্থার মধ্যেই থাকতে হবে। হোল গ্লোবাল কমিউনিটিজ আর ইউনাইটেড and the democratic states are holding their elections under a election commission, both in the US and the United Kingdom, in Australia, in Japan, in everywhere in the world. So তখন বাংলাদেশ ভাবলো এখন যে আমাদের এই পন্থাটাই হলো সবচেয়ে গণতান্ত্রিক দেশে যেভাবে নির্বাচন হয়, উন্নত বিশ্বে যেভাবে নির্বাচন হয়, একটি শক্তিশালী নির্বাচন কমিশনের ব্যবস্থাপনায় যেভাবে নির্বাচন হয় বাংলাদেশকে সেভাবেই ইলেকশন থাকতে হবে এবং সেটি একটি গ্রহণযোগ্য। এই বিষয়েও জাতি ঐক্যবদ্ধ হলো। সুতরাং সেটি এখন আমাদের কনস্টিটিউশনাল প্রভিশন এবং সেটি আমাদের এখন কাম্য। আমরা শুধুমাত্র প্রতি বছরে এক একটি গিনিপিগের মতো এক একটি পন্থা অবলম্বন করে এখানে পরীক্ষা নিরীক্ষা করার জন্য এই জাতি এখন পশ্চাতে যেতে আমরা চাই না। কারণ আমরা এখন অনেক অনেক উন্নয়নের রোল মডেল হিসেবে অনেক মানদণ্ডে বাংলাদেশ এখন উন্নয়নের রোল মডেল হিসেবে পরিচিত। বিভিন্ন দেশের রাষ্ট্রপ্রধান, সরকার প্রধান এবং সিভিল সোসাইটির যারা প্রধান আছেন, সুশীল সমাজের সদস্য, তারা বাংলাদেশকে একটি উদাহরণ হিসেবে বিভিন্ন দেশে উদাহরণ হিসেবে তুলে ধরেন। আমরা বিশ্বের বিভিন্ন বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ে যখন যাই তখন বাংলাদেশের এক একটি কেস তারা এটাকে বলেন যে বাংলাদেশের এই ক্ষেত্রটি তো তোমাদের তো একটা উদাহরণ। হাউ ডিড ইউ অ্যাচিভ দিস সাকসেস, হোয়াট ইজ দি মিস্ট্রি অফ ইউর সাকসেস, তোমাদের রহস্য কী, এই ধরনের নানা প্রশ্ন আমাদেরকে জিজ্ঞেস করে। তখন আমরা সম্মানিত হই, আনন্দিত হই যে বাংলাদেশ একটি এই অবস্থানে আমরা আজকে পৌঁছতে পেরেছি। সুতরাং এখানে আমাদেরকে নানা ধরনের বিতর্কের বেড়াজালে আমাদেরকে এর মধ্যে ফেলে আবার পূর্বের ন্যায় আমরা পশ্চাতের দিকে আমাদের যাওয়ার কোনো সুযোগ বাংলাদেশের এখন নেই। পরীক্ষা নিরীক্ষার গিনিপিগের সাথে যেটা কথা আমি বললাম ওইভাবে করে আমরা আবার পশ্চাতে চাই না। আমরা যেভাবে আছি এটাকে আমরা এখন ফরওয়ার্ড, এখন আরও সামনের দিকে এগিয়ে যাওয়া, সেটি হলো এই জাতির প্রত্যাশা। আমরা সেই দর্শনই বিশ্বাস করি এবং একজন সুশীল সমাজের একজন সদস্য হিসাবে, একজন বিনম্র সদস্য হিসাবে আমারও এই আহ্বান যে আমরা মূলত এই কনস্টিটিউশনাল প্রভিশনে সেখানে সেই আলোকে একটি স্থিতিশীলতার মধ্য দিয়েই এই রাজনৈতিক কর্মকাণ্ড সেটি পরিচালিত হবে, সেটি বিশ্বাস রাখি। সকল ধরনের সহিংসতা এড়িয়ে এবং একটি সুন্দর নির্বাচন হবে, নতুন একটি সরকার গঠিত হওয়ার সকল পথ তৈরি হবে এবং এটি সভ্য দেশের একটি সুন্দর উদাহরণ। সেই উদাহরণেই যেন আমরা থাকি, সেই প্রত্যাশা রেখে আমি ধন্যবাদ জানিয়ে আপনার বক্তব্য শেষ করি। আপনারা ভালো থাকুন, সুস্থ থাকুন। জয় বাংলা, জয় বঙ্গবন্ধু, বাংলাদেশ চিরজীবী হোক।